Hello. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. I'm thrilled to get to see the faces I'm seeing today, and I hope you are too. I'll start off with our co-host, Aaron McDade, who preached for us this morning at Grandview Christian Church, assuming COVID didn't come in between the recording of this and Sunday morning. Aaron, how are you doing?
Doing well, Aaron. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you. I was trying to think what year we met. What year did you start at Emmanuel?
I started at Emmanuel in 2001, so it's been 20 years this fall that we would have met.
That's
Time goes by
amazing.
quickly.
It does. And you were in a small group that I was leading in Emmanuel. I remember meeting you there. And, that's before I knew that your husband existed. That's before Nathan came up, isn't it?
It is. He does still exist.
Good.
And he's doing well. And,
I'm going to need some visual proof, but yeah.
No worries. Coming soon.
And you're now at CMF after starting out at CMF and being at Puebla as campus ministers there, and then moving on to Mountain Christian Church. How long have you been at CMF now?
I've been at CMF for a year and a half now. So got in a little bit before the crazy year we just came out of, and my family got established, and it's been going well so far.
And what is your role there now?
I serve as CMF's Director of Advancement. So I get to connect with all the awesome partners that we have and help them further engage with great missionaries around the world.
Well, speaking of awesome partners, let's introduce Meredith and Claudia and David. We'll start with you, Meredith, since you are from good old East Tennessee, and we got to watch you grow up, although you were pretty grown up by the time I arrived. You were in high school. So how are you doing, Meredith?
I'm doing well. Doing pretty good here in Edinburgh.
Yeah, and what are you finding is your favorite thing to eat in Scotland?
I mean, haggis, obviously.
No way. Is it really?
I actually do really enjoy haggis.
Yeah.
We just celebrated Burns Night, which is a celebration of Robert Burns. And so we had a traditional Burns Night dinner here in our flat.
Well, that sounds nice. How long have you been at Edinburgh now?
It'll be 8 years in March.
Wow. It seems like you didn't leave that long ago.
I know.
And that'll bring me to David and Claudia. You're the ones most recently with us at Grandview, and we miss you guys as well. And you're coming to us from Chile, but that's not where you minister. Will you tell us more about where you minister?
We are in Montevideo, Uruguay, so like 2 countries to the right from Chile. It's like a 2.5-hour flight, so not that too far. And we've been there since late 2015. Yeah. So this is, I think, we're going into our 6th year there.
6th year there. So that means you left here 6 years ago then.
Yep.
Man, time really does fly. It's amazing. And you're hoping to head back to Montevideo soon, but I understand you had a flight canceled because of COVID?
Yeah. I don't know how, but we're supposed to fly back tomorrow, and now we're hopefully going back on Monday. Which hopefully it happens, because if not, we have to do the whole thing, twice, which is not that fun.
I'm curious how the airplane caught COVID, but that's probably another call for another time. So, well, thank you so much for joining us and for being a part of this call. We just have a few connection questions and what you're doing questions that we would love to give to you. And I'm going to ask Aaron to ask the first one about the context.
Yeah.
You guys.
You said that you're serving, obviously, with Global Scope through CMF Campus Ministry in Uruguay and in Scotland, but maybe if you could both just tell us a little bit about your ministries. David and Clau, you guys want to start?
Yeah, sure.
Well, Uruguay is an interesting country for us because Chile, where we're from, it's a mostly Catholic country, so everyone knows about the biblical story the narrative. But Uruguay, even though it's that like so close to Chile, it's a totally different story. They are the most secular country in the Americas, which didn't mean that much to us, I guess, at the beginning. But being there, it does make a difference. Like our students, they don't really know. Most of them, they don't know like anything about Jesus. They know
or even the nativity story.
Yeah, like the very basic stories, those like big hits that we heard like throughout our lives. They have never heard of those, which is fun because you get to see the faces that first time when they hear them.
For the first time.
Yeah, so that's fun. It's a small country. It's only 3.7 million people. And one of the reasons why we went there with Global Scope to the campus ministry is because pretty much if you want to go to college, everything, like every campus is in Montevideo. So you have to move there if you're not from Montevideo, which is great for a campus ministry because that means that for us, I think we have over 100,000 students in the city. And we might not reach them all, but we're trying. So that's a lot of fun, a lot of work, but we love it. It's been fun.
And tell us a little bit about your team too, just so we can know who serves alongside you.
Well, we are 6 right now.
We are 6.
And we have 2 Uruguayan interns, and these are the biggest, happy thing for the year because they were students, and right now they are interns, and this year they are continue working in La Ruta. So and with other 3 more teammates.
Yeah, I think we're 7 with interns.
That's excellent. So these are teammates that have come through the ministry and are going to be serving alongside you on staff now, obviously bring a unique perspective. Were they Christ followers, or where are they in their faith journey?
Well, our teammates, we have other, I think, Abigail, Rachel, they came from ACF, Auburn Christian Fellowship. And then Rustin, he came from a church in Colorado. So those are that's the staff. And those 2 interns, one of them was a Christ follower. He grew up in a Christian house, and he kind of like rediscovered his faith through the ministry because he grew up in a very conservative house, and he had to do some like deconstruction, and it was really interesting to see. And this other intern, she wasn't a Christian, she was an atheist, and they didn't really love the idea of the whole Jesus story or anything like that.
She hated.
I didn't want to say it, but
but now she's the best.
She's just amazing, and it's like her story is so powerful for so many of our students who are not, close to the idea of believing in anything.
And she was baptized 2 years ago in a mission trip that we did to Chile with the other Global Scope here in Chile. So her story is amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. What about you, Meredith? Can you tell us a little bit about the context that you're in right now?
Yeah, in Scotland, we're actually fairly similar to how Claudia and David were explaining Uruguay, where it is a bit less kind of Christian culture here in Scotland, throughout the UK really, than you would expect maybe in East Tennessee. Most students here, I would say, do have a bit of an understanding of what the Christian story sounds like. At least they'll know Christmas story. They might have some ideas about church and about Christians and about Easter maybe as well. But about 90% of the students who are part of Roots are not Christians, wouldn't consider themselves Christians, which gives us the opportunity to meet them in a place where they are wondering about life and faith and figuring out what kind of people they want to be when they grow up and as they become adults. And so we get to step into their lives in that moment, which is really exciting to say, like, oh, you know, maybe a little bit about this, but let's talk about it a bit deeper and a bit more.
Right. And tell us about your team makeup.
We have 6, definitely 6, not 7. We've got, there are one family, the Owens, who they and I were part of the team that started Roots 8 years ago. And then the other 3 are pretty new. One that started in January, Fraser, he is a graduate of Roots, and he just started in January, which we are very excited about. And then the other 2 just started in the autumn. So they both moved over in September, or was it October? In September, and then their quarantine ended in October. So we got to see them in person at that point.
Yeah. Always good to be face to face with your new teammates.
Yes.
Seems like that would help.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question that interests me. It may not interest anybody else, but even though they speak Spanish in both countries where you're from and where you go to, are there language differences that have surprised you? Are there any good stories about that?
Yeah. So what they do, I think it's right between Argentina and Uruguay, there's this river, Rio de la Plata, or like River Plate, if you're a soccer fan, that might mean something. So I think it's a culture that is connected to the river. So the way they pronounce the double L's or Y's, we like in Spanish, we would say pollo.
That's meat chicken.
Yeah, sure. Or
I go to Mexican restaurants. I know what pollo is.
I know, right? One other thing that we missed.
You're making me hungry.
So instead of doing the j sound like pollo or llave, they say sh. So it's pollo or chave or lluvia, like rain, lluvia. So I remember when we were at one of the scouting trips that we did at the very beginning, before moving there, obviously, I remember we were staying at this hostel, and it was in a street called Eyauri, which I just didn't think of it, but it's supposed to be pronounced Eshauri. And we got lost, and we were walking. I remember one of the other guys on the team, we were walking around for like 35 minutes asking everyone, hey, we are staying at this hostel. It's on the Eyauri street, and like nobody knew the street. And we were like, it's a big street. And at some point, someone said, wait, what did you say? And I was like, Eyauri? And he was like, oh, you mean Eshauri? Yeah, it's like a block from here. So a lot of those kind of things.
Well, likewise, we speak English in America and in Scotland, but you probably took a little while, Meredith, to be able to really understand what people were saying. Do you have any good stories about that?
Yes, one time on a weekend away, some of our Scottish students and students around the world were playing the game Heads Up, where you have a word that you're guessing on your phone. And the gal who had the phone was Scottish. No one else playing was. And they were all sing out a thing. The word on the screen was splinter, taking out a splinter. She did not know. She finally got it, and she said, oh, a skelf. And everybody in the room was like, what? What is this word that none of us have ever heard of? And then she called over to another of the Scottish students and said, hey, what's a skelf in like other kinds of English? And she said, oh, splinter. And we're like, oh,
Great.
yeah, okay.
Skill, okay. I imagine, the things we take for granted, and you go into a mission context, and little things have to play a bigger role sometimes than you would ever imagine they would. So
Right.
you've all three been in those contexts long enough to get around a lot of that, I presume, and that must feel really good to finally feel like you know what people are saying.
Getting into the groove of saying trousers instead of pants, helpful.
Well, I even had to deal with it when I moved to East Tennessee and had to learn about the phrase "I don't care to." That was all new for me. So I guess it happens no matter where we go or what we do.
Right.
Well, I would love to hear more also about what kind of creative things you guys have come up with for sharing the gospel during a time when face-to-face is limited and normal places to hang out are restricted. And I'll start with you, Meredith. What kind of things have you come up with as workarounds for this new context?
This term, we're starting something, well, we've already started a new project that we're calling Roots subscription boxes. So students who are part of the Roots community can sign up for it. And each month this semester, we will send them a small box of Roots goodies in it as a way to keep people connected with the community and give them something nice to be receiving from Roots. We did a party in a box to celebrate the beginning of the school year, this for January, and that included some party hats and party blowers and a Roots t-shirt and some candles and haggis.
Oh, goodness.
No haggis.
How about for you all, Claudia and David?
Yeah, I think we were kind of lucky because at the very beginning of the whole thing, Uruguay was doing pretty well. I think we had 10, maybe 12 new cases every day for months. So the things that were restricted were big reunions. So we had to stop events, like large events. But we could still meet in like small groups and one-on-ones outside. We could eat outside in small numbers. So that was really good. So things that we did that actually worked pretty well was one of those, we found a pizza place that could hold about 20 people, like with enough space in between them. And we did a trivia lunch there. So that was very good. I mean, students love free food and trivia, so that works. And then we changed our kind of Bible study event. We couldn't do it on our ministry house, so instead of that we started streaming on Instagram the talks and made it in small groups. And we didn't really think that it was going to work that well, but it was amazing. It was a game changer because the kind of conversations, the trust that was built in between students that otherwise might not even get to, have those conversations. It was just great. So even though we didn't have very strict rules to follow because Uruguay was doing well, those little changes, I mean, they were great. And I think we're going to continue doing the same even if everything goes back to normal.
That was one of the questions I was actually going to ask too, is what do you feel like you're learning in this time that is changing the way that you do ministry? I mean, everybody is changing how they connect with people. You just described there's something that you're going to keep doing because it works, but this time allows us to connect with people differently. What have you found successful?
So I guess because our students are not really into Christianity that much, we didn't think that smaller settings would be better in that sense, because a lot of them wouldn't just share anything. And we discovered that even though they might not share our beliefs or our faith, in a smaller setting, they feel much, it's a word, empowered maybe to say what they really think, even when they don't really agree with what we believe or the way how we live our lives or how we take decisions. But we get to have those conversations, and that's the first step in many ways.
That's great. Have you found that to be true in your setting too, Meredith, with these smaller groups that are gathering?
No. We actually tried something very similar last term. We've been posting our talks on our Instagram account, and then our goal was to also then do small group meetings each week, and they just did not happen, which was really disheartening. We thought it was a great idea. It was a great idea. It just wasn't what students could handle at that point in the year. So we have had to revamp and rethink, and that's part of what we have learned is just, okay, well, that didn't work. That's okay. Let's try something new and see what happens if we try something new. So one thing that we've learned is that regular, that feels like sporadic for our events is working better than come do this thing with us every week. Right. I think that every week ended up feeling like, well, I'm too tired this week because I've been on a screen all day already. So I'll just be there next week. It's easy to miss it when you're already exhausted. So doing things this term, we are having one event every other week. So far, we've had 2 this term, and we've had more students show up to these 2 events already than most of our things that we did last term. So that's been a helpful lesson that we have learned, that's been really, really good. Also, one-on-one meetings, we were still able to do those in person last term, and those were great. I had a personal ministry goal within my purview at Roots to be in contact with and trying to meet with at least 15 students this school year, which at the beginning of the autumn semester, I thought, yeah, right, that's not going to happen this year. That there just are not enough. There are too many of us on the team and everyone's spread out. Like, it's just not going to happen. But because students were interested in meeting up, and even students who haven't been doing that in the past, but they are craving connection and craving conversation, in part in person and in part real conversations, those have continued to go well, maybe in ways that I wasn't expecting.
Right.
And I've been going on a lot of walks instead of sitting in places or sitting in cafes. That is something that I will probably also continue even when things are back to more normal, because it's just
it is amazing.
Well, it's nice to be moving about. And I think that conversation happens in a different way than when you're sitting across a table from somebody staring each other down. It's really interesting.
It is amazing to watch how everything is changing in terms of how we're planning, and the fact, like you said earlier, you plan something and it doesn't work, and you're free to just abandon it. Well, we know now, and now we'll try something else. It seems like what we're doing all the time. So that's great to hear. Could I hear some about some of the logistic problems you might face now that you didn't face before in terms of travel and visas and all of that sort of thing?
Well, we currently have the borders are closed. So we're here. We can leave if we need to, but there's not really. I already have, because I've been here long enough, I have indefinitely to remain. I have a settlement status here in the UK. So that's visas, and at this point, things like that are not an issue for me, which is really great. For our 2 new teammates US route and now sponsor visas. So we are able to sponsor their visas. So it doesn't really affect things, although it did slow their visa retrieval process down. So they were meant to get here back in August. It took about another month and a half for them, an extra month and a half than what we were hoping for them to get here.
Interesting. How about you all in Uruguay? I never say it right. So how do people in that country say that name?
I want you to say it like David says it.
Uruguay.
Uruguay.
Uruguay. Yeah, the U is just
Uruguay.
Say that again.
Uruguay.
Uruguay. Uruguay. Okay. Oh, I'll keep working on it. I would never find that street if I was wandering looking for that street. I'd be asking for whatever. And I'm sorry, I'm getting us off topic. Tell us what you've discovered about the logistics.
Well, if we ever go back to Uruguay now that we're here in Chile, I guess that it's going to be one of the few things. So it's not that much, but we now, for us to go back, we got to do the PCR. I think it's called everywhere. Hopefully, the thing on the nose, And then once we go there, we either quarantine for 14 days or do another one, which is not a fun thing to do, and that's required for everyone, and it's expensive as well. It's I think it's a little over $100 in Uruguay. So like the four of us, but then every teammate going back to Uruguay has to do it. So that's one thing, but also like the borders are closed, and we have one teammate that is she's supposed to join the team early this year. I think the plan was February, but borders are not going to be open at all. And that's like the ministry, it's called La Ruta. And we do have like a nonprofit status there, but we can't, that doesn't mean anything for visas. We would have to hire this team member in order to give, to run the paperwork, and we're not doing that because there's CMF. Anyways, it does mean that we're going to have to wait until the borders open for her to come, and that might be they're not getting any vaccines soon enough, so that might be a complication for her to join the team.
It's fascinating what you all describe. We're seeing it really for so many of our CMF fields. It's getting harder with visas to get status. I didn't know you had settlement status, Meredith. That's wonderful. It's been a challenge in some other countries where we have CMF missionaries. And so you rightly so have people ask, why does it still matter? Why should we be sending people across this world? Why would you, David and Clau, move from Chile, where you have family and friends and you have this great connection with an already strong campus ministry? Why would you even go to Uruguay in the first place? Does it still matter? Where do you see the advantage in crossing those cultures? Why do we still do it?
I feel for us, we had the blessing of being part of El Oasis, the Global Scoop ministry here in Santiago. And it just, it changed the way how we understood our faith in that stage of life. And we worked here for 3.5 years before moving. And we still love El Oasis. It's such an amazing ministry, but we felt compelled to share this with, people doesn't have that chance. So for us to move to Uruguay was basically that, the whole sense of responsibility to take this
amazing community that we have in El Oasis, an amazing people connection, that why not? We can bring all these beautiful muestra, like a muestra del reino de Dios.
This Erin,
God, yeah, you get to show God off, the realizations of God.
I think for us the question is why not going out? is an opportunity. Like it's a lot of people in need, like in spiritual needs. That and in Uruguay, the context and everything for us was feel I don't know when we read when Jesus was looking the city and he felt like compassion or mercy for the people, and I think us feel mercy and compassion for Uruguay too. So I think that's why.
Yeah, and for a students experience community in this kind of, it just changes lives. It's really a piece of the kingdom of God, and for them to have the opportunity to experience that, we do believe that that's going to change their lives, and the country,
Yeah.
hopefully the world.
Well, you all are compelled to go because you have witnessed firsthand the love of Jesus and you want others to see it. But I think there's something beautiful. You're doing the Jesus way. All of you are. You're going into a foreign culture. You're having to learn a different language, like we've been talking about. English isn't English. Spanish isn't Spanish. And you're with people who are unlike you. And it's really compelling. I think some of the most beautiful gospel ministry happens when you do this intercultural living. And so thank you for doing it. I know that your faith has probably been transformed by it, but so you help shape the rest of us too, who are living through it with you.
Absolutely. And Meredith, in Scotland, how do they say Scotland?
All right.
No, you.
Scotland.
Okay. I've noticed whenever I try to do a Scottish accent, I way overdo it.
I
It's
way
more
overdo it,
subtle
or
than
it
you think.
becomes Irish or Australian. It's so difficult to do.
It really is. Well, how can we be praying for you all at Grandview? We sure appreciate what you're doing, and we're thrilled to get to be a part of supporting it. But we know it takes more than money. It takes a lot more. So what are the best ways we can be praying for you all?
We started.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, all the time when I receive that question, my first thing is Emma and Samuel. So yeah, these are my first things.
Yeah, we're changing schools, so they're going to a new school next year, if it happens. We don't know. It might be Zoom, but
yeah, Emma is 7, so she is starting 2nd grade, and Samuel is 3, and he's going to start pre-K. So
it's a big thing. Our kids. What else? The ministry. We don't really know what's going to look like, because we're going back on Monday. Summer ends in February, at the end of February, and then the semester starts. But we don't really know anything. Schools haven't really mentioned if they're going back to normal, or most of our students are not from Montevideo, so that means that if they go back to regular classes, we are going to have a reduced number of students, and we have to adapt to that as well. So I guess flexibility and wisdom in how we take those decisions for the ministry.
That's interesting. That's exactly what we're praying for here at Grandview, flexibility and wisdom. How about in Scotland?
Well, I always say my first prayer request is what our vision statement is at Roots, which is that all university students in Edinburgh would become lifelong followers. Something that Claudia and David mentioned earlier was how many students there are in Montevideo, which is true here in Edinburgh as well. There are 4 universities here, and that La Ruta and Roots we cannot do all of that. We cannot reach all of the students, but God can do that. And that's our God-sized dream for what we want to be praying for Edinburgh, for Roots in particular. I would also echo flexibility, creativity, wisdom, energy, and just give us, that God would give us energy to do this, to keep being on screens, to keep being excited about what we're doing, as well as transition of our new teammates here onto the field. I mean, the folks who moved from the US, they've been here for a semester now. We're still settling in and still figuring out what life looks like here in a pandemic, and so it makes it even harder, as well as our teammate who joined this month. We're a new team, so it's a new transition. So praying for good relationships and fun and cohesion, and that we'd all be on the same page.
Great. And Aaron, how can we be praying for CMF? Because you have all these same issues and a broader scope to work on there.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of the same prayers. Wisdom would be beautiful, and just part of what we're trying to do is make sure that our teammates around the world, like the folks on this call, are healthy and strong, and so any way that we can serve them and help them keep ministering in faithful ways. So just prayers for wisdom and creativity, energy, same things, and just we're ready to travel again. So as soon as we can do that,
that would be great.
Yep.
Well, wonderful. I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your schedules to be here. I know you've got a lot to get done, and you matter to us so much. We do, as you know, we have a mission every week that we remember in prayer at Grandview and focus on, and we'll continue to do that. And it always is wonderful to help see the faces and to hear your voices again. So thank you for being a part of this. Adios. And
goodbye.
I don't know what to say, how you say goodbye in Scotland.
See ya.
That's it?
Bye.
That's it.